Welcome to AHA Math and Science. In this video, we're going to show you a method of finding the square root of any number by hand. So what is the square root of 97? What is the square root of 718? Well, these numbers are not square numbers, so we cannot kind of like use easily guess the square root. Now, if a number that falls into one of these square numbers on the right column, then the square root of this number is very easy to identify. For example, the square root of 49 is just 7. So how can we find the square root of these non-square numbers? Well, let's start with this general notation. We call the square root of any number as square root of a, where a is not necessarily a square number. So to start with, we're going to first find a square number we call b squared, which is very close to a. And then we can write this a as b squared plus a minus b squared. As you can see, b squared and negative b squared just cancel out. So this is really the same as a. Then we're going to factor out the b squared. So the first term just becomes 1, and the second term just becomes a minus b squared over b squared. The next step is just take the square root. The square root of b squared is just b. And then the second term is 1 plus this number here to the power of 1/2, which is the same as the square root. Now note that b squared is very close to a. So the difference between a and b squared is very small. And then when you have this small difference divided by a big number b squared, this number is usually much smaller than 1. So how we can actually find the square root of 1 plus a small number? Well, in mathematics, there's a nice formula we can use called Taylor expansion. So if you have 1 plus a small number x, which is much less than 1, and you raise it to the power of lambda, we can expand it to the zeroth order term, which is just 1. And this is the first order term in terms of x. It's just the power of lambda times x plus some high order terms as like x squared, x cubic, etc. But when the x is much smaller than 1, these high order terms usually are negligible, because if x is much less than 1, then x squared would be even smaller. So to a very good approximation, 1 plus x to the lambda power can be just expressed as 1 plus lambda x. Using this and recognizing this is our x, which is a small number, and the lambda is 1/2, and then we can expand this term here in terms of this Taylor expansion as 1 plus lambda is 1/2, and x is a minus b squared over b squared. We still have this b in front. We can now distribute out. And the first term is just b times 1, which is just b. The second term is b times 1/2, and there's a b squared here. So this b here cancel with one of the b on the bottom. So we just have 2 times b on the denominator. And then the numerator is just a minus b squared. So with this, we can now see the general method of finding the square root of any number by hand. So the first step is really to find the integer so that you get a b squared, which is a square number, and that is very close to a. So find a square number very close to a. And then the second step is just kind of expand the square root of a using this approximation. So the first term is just a b, because b squared is already identified as a square number close to a. So that's your first term. And then plus some small correction, which we call delta, is equal to a minus b squared over 2b, and then which is written here. So let's illustrate the use of this method using some examples. So what is the square root of 97? So our first step is to find a square number. Well, in this case, it's actually not difficult to spot that the closest square number is 100, which is just the square of 10. So in this case, our b is just 10, and then we can use this equation to find the square root of 97. So the square root of 97 is a 10 plus some small correction. And that correction is given by this formula, a minus b squared over 2b. In this case, our a is 97, which is the number that we initially try to find its square root, and minus b squared, which is, this is b squared, and so it's minus 100, and then over 2b, 2 times 10. So the numerator is just -3, the denominator is 10d, So negative 3 over 20 is just equal to negative 0.15. So this is our correction. Therefore, the final answer for square root of 97 is just 10 plus negative 0.15, which is equal to 9.85. Let's compare this approximate result to the exact answer. So the exact answer using a calculator, we can find the square root of 97 is equal to 9.849. So the difference is 0.001, which is really a good agreement between the exact answer and our method of doing square root by hand. Let's look at another example. In this case, we are trying to find the square root of 718. Now this is not a square number, and the closest one might guess is like perhaps is like 400, because 400 is a square number. It's the square root is just 20, and 900 is also a square number. The square root of 30. So the 718 is kind of between 400 and 900. So the square root is probably between 20 and 30. But both 400 and 900 is actually not that close to 718. So we want to find a number that is a square number that is very close to 718. So how can we do that? Well, there's a trick here we can use, which is try to find some numbers on the right column of this chart here. And you can find two numbers, for example, and do a product. And if that product is very close to 718, that's the number we can use, because this is a square, this is a square. The product of two square number is still a square number. So here we identify 9 and 81. The product of 9 and 81 is the number that is closest to 718. So 9 times 81 is equal to 729. 9 is a square of 3. 81 is a square of 9. So 729 is actually the square of 27. So in this case, our B is 27. And then we can use this equation to find the square root of 718. So it's 27 plus some small correction. The correction is equal to A minus B squared is 718, B squared is 729, which is a square number we identified, divided by 2B. B is 27, so 2B is 2 times 27, which is 54 on the denominator, and the numerator is just negative 11. So with this, you can see that this is very close to about like 0.2, right? This is like 10, this is like 50. So negative 0.2 is our correction. Therefore, our final answer for the square root of 718 is 27 plus negative 0.2, which is equal to 26.8. And we can compare to the exact answer using a calculator. We find the square root of 718 is 26.796. So the difference between these two numbers is 0.004. So the numbers again agree with each other, very well. But our method by using this approximation, it does not really take a lot of efforts, and then you can actually figure out the square root without using a calculator, which is really kind of convenient in some cases. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.